Have you ever looked up and wondered if the stars remember love better than we do? If so, stay with me tonight. I often think about how the sky holds more than light. It holds memory. Every shimmer, every soft dusting of silver, feels like the afterimage of something once loved, once lost, once whispered to the night. The ancients must have known this. Before there were books or cities that glowed brighter than constellations, people tilted their faces upward and saw their own hearts reflected there. They gave names to stars the way you name someone you miss. Carefully, reverently, afraid that forgetting the name might mean losing the feeling itself. When I look up, I like to imagine the Milky Way not as a cold stretch of galaxies, but as a path, paved with light, built by longing, a river that has been flowing since time began, carrying with it the stories of those who loved across impossible distances. Tonight, I want to tell you one of those stories. It comes from ancient China, but its heartbeat is universal. A tale of two souls who found each other across heaven and earth, and whose love still shines above us. The story begins with silence. That kind of silence that lived between the rustling of leaves and the sigh of your own breath. In that silence, the world once felt small. Fields, rivers, mountains, and the sky that folded them all together like the palm of a gentle hand. Life was measured not by clocks, but by seasons. People rose with the sun, rested with the moon, and in between they dreamed. To them, the heavens were not far away. They were a neighbor, sometimes kind, sometimes watchful. Imagine yourself in that world. You're standing barefoot on a dirt path still damp from the evening rain. The air smells of earth and rice fields, and somewhere a bamboo flute drifts over the wind. Above you, the stars shimmer faintly, their reflections caught in the still water of an irrigation canal. You can almost believe they are watching you, listening, waiting for you to ask them a question. And maybe you do ask, softly, the way people do when they think no one is listening. Why do we love, if love so often leads to pain? Why do we long for what we cannot keep? The heavens, they say, answered in stories. The people of old understood the sky not through science, but through feeling. When the sun rose, it was courage. When the moon waned, it was sorrow. And when the Milky Way appeared, stretching from one end of the horizon to the other, it became something sacred, an eternal bridge between two lovers fated to live apart. The Milky Way, in Chinese, is called the Silver River. It was said to flow through the heart of heaven itself. Children would lie on their backs and trace its shape with their fingers, their mothers telling them that each spark of light was a star weaver at work, spinning dreams into silk. For them, love was not only found in the beating of hearts, but in the weaving of destinies. This story, the one we will drift into tonight, belongs to that same sky. It begins not in a palace or a battlefield, but between the stars, where a weaver girl once worked at her loom. Her name was Zhinü, the weaver girl, and the threads she wove were made of starlight. With each pass of her shuttle, she created clouds of color, veils of dawn, the very robes of the heavens. Her mother, the Queen of Heaven, was proud but stern. Zhinü's task was sacred, her work never-ending. But even gods, it seems, grow lonely. Below her on earth lived a cowherd named Niulang, a man with simple dreams and patient eyes. His days were filled with toil and quiet rhythm. He led his oxen through fields, tended the crops, and spoke more often to the wind than to other people. He had lost much in life, yet his heart remained open, as if waiting for something unnamed. One day, their worlds would cross, and when they did, the silver river would shimmer with new meaning, a symbol not just of distance, but devotion that endures despite it. For now, though, we linger in this moment of stillness before their meeting. The night stretches infinitely, calm and vast. You can almost feel its breath, cool against your skin. Somewhere, a poet is writing by candlelight, trying to describe how stars tremble when lovers are kept apart. Somewhere, an old woman is telling a child that the heavens watch over those who wait with faith. The stars, she says, remember everything. They remember when gods fell in love with mortals, when rivers were made from tears, when love itself became a part of the sky. And perhaps, as you listen, you begin to feel that memory too, the hum of something ancient in your chest, a sense that the universe is not indifferent, but quietly alive, carrying our stories in its endless light. In the days to come, I'll tell you how Zhinü looked down from her loom and saw a man walking beside an ox under the summer sun. I'll tell you how a goddess fell to earth, not out of rebellion, but out of longing. And I'll tell you how the Queen of Heaven wept as she tore them apart. Because even gods cannot escape the pain of love. But not yet. Tonight, we rest here at the edge of the Silver River, watching it shimmer through the dark. We remember that love, whether divine or human, always begins with wonder. It begins with a look, a question, a moment when two souls recognize themselves in each other. So if you ever find yourself beneath the sky, so clear that the stars seem close enough to touch, pause for a moment. Listen. Maybe you'll hear the faint sound of a loom-weaving light. Maybe you'll sense two hearts still reaching for each other, even after 1,000 years. And if you do, don't be afraid to whisper back. The sky, after all, has a memory. It keeps the promises we forget. It remembers every love that ever tried to cross its river. Can you imagine waking up to the sound of river birds, knowing the sky above isn't just air, but home to the gods? Morning in ancient China began quietly, like the slow opening of a fan. The world was still wrapped in mist, the kind that softens every shape and makes the earth feel newly born. The first sound wasn't the clang of metal or the cry of merchants, but the breath of animals rising, the shuffle of woven sandals on packed soil. People lived close to the ground then, close enough to smell the night's dew before it vanished, close enough to hear how the river sighed when it met the stones. If you were there, you would have woken before dawn. Maybe you would be a girl sitting by a loom, fingers rough but graceful, winding silk threads that shimmer like spider webs caught in sunlight. Or perhaps you'd be a boy guiding his oxen to the damp fields, your bare feet sinking into the cool mud as the plow traced its slow, patient lines. Life was humble, but it was not small. It was made of rhythms so deep that even the heavens seemed to echo them. The village would be stirring now, a soft chorus of life returning to motion, smoke rising from clay stoves, the sharp scent of rice husks burning, children chasing chickens from the doorway, a woman calling out to her husband as she kneaded dough for the morning cakes. There was laughter, too, always somewhere, as though the land itself found joy in its people. No one spoke of destiny in grand words. They lived it through small acts. The farmer's back bent to the earth, the weaver's shoulders curved toward her frame, both performing prayers of movement, wordless and enduring. The villagers didn't think of these gestures as worship, yet everything they did reached upward, as if their labor itself were a kind of devotion, and above them, the heavens watched. To the people, the sky wasn't empty. It was alive, a great mirror that reflected their own world in brighter, purer forms. Every star had a meaning, every shift in the wind a whisper from the gods. The fields were under the care of divine spirits, the rivers guarded by dragons, the mountains by immortal sages. A sudden storm could be anger, a rainbow, forgiveness. But the greatest blessing of all was balance. Heaven and earth, divine and mortal, woman and man, all were woven together by invisible threads. No one questioned this order. It was as natural as breathing. Yet sometimes, in the quiet of evening, someone might glance upward and wonder what lay beyond that shimmering divide. You would see it too, standing at the edge of a rice terrace as dusk begins to fall. The last of the sunlight paints the water in gold. Fireflies blink near the reeds, and for a heartbeat, it feels like the stars have come down to rest beside you. You look up, and there it is, the silver river, spilling across the night like milk poured from a celestial bowl. The old women of the village say it's a path for the gods. The young men laugh, saying it's only stars. But in your heart, you're not so sure. The weaver girl, Zhinü, works high above, they say, weaving clouds by day and stars by night. She is beautiful beyond words, but lonely, forever bound to her loom. You've heard this story since childhood, but tonight it feels different. Maybe because you've started to understand what loneliness means. Maybe because you, too, spend your days repeating motions that seem eternal, binding and releasing, weaving and unraveling. There's something sacred in repetition. The steady rhythm of the loom becomes the heartbeat of time itself. Each thread slides through your fingers like a moment slipping through life. the softest of silk against wood, the pulse of your breath. It feels like creation. You're not just making cloth. You're part of the great weaving that holds a world together. And far away, the cowherd works in rhythm too. His days move slowly, marked by sun and rain, by the patient chewing of his oxen and the sigh of the wind over the grasslands. He talks to his animals more than to people, because they listen without judgment. Sometimes, when he lies in the grass, he stares up at the drifting clouds and wonders if the gods ever envy humans for their freedom to dream. The people of that time believed that the distance between heaven and earth was not fixed. The gods could descend if they wished. Mortals might ascend through virtue or tragedy. The barrier was made not of stone, but of silence, and silence, like silk, could be woven apart. At night, families gathered outside their homes to share stories. The flickering of oil lamps painted soft shadows on their faces as elders spoke of the past, of emperors who ruled by mandate of heaven, of maidens who became stars, of rivers born from tears. The children would sit quietly, wide-eyed, clutching their knees as if holding on to the world itself. You would sit among them, perhaps listening to the same story told again and again, the weaver girl above, the cowherd below, and the promise that someday their paths would cross. The words settled deep in you, like seeds waiting for the right season. You began to see the world differently after that. The flight of birds no longer seemed random. Perhaps they carried messages between realms. The patterns of clouds became woven tapestries, signs of the weaver girl's hand. Even the stars looked closer, as though bending down to listen. Every part of daily life was infused with that quiet sense of belonging, to the earth, to the sky, to something larger and unseen. The world was smaller then, but it felt infinite because it was full of meaning. A bowl of rice was not just food. It was sunlight, rain, soil, and labor made visible. A piece of cloth was not just a garment. It was patience, artistry, and the breath of a weaver who whispered her thoughts into every thread. Maybe that's why love stories in those days felt like acts of creation. They were not about possession but connection, about finding another rhythm that matched your own. Somewhere between the clatter of the loom and the lowing of oxen, the world hummed with harmony. And yet, even harmony can ache, because in the heart of every rhythm, there is a pause, a longing, a space waiting to be filled. That's where our story is heading, toward a meeting that will disturb this balance, not out of chaos, but out of need. For heaven, too, must learn humility, and earth must learn hope. But for now, stay in this world where every sound has meaning, every motion prayer. Feel the warmth of the sun on your shoulders, the cool of the river on your feet, the air taste of life and promise. The sky above hums faintly as if something or someone is listening, and perhaps they are. Even heaven, with all its golden halls, can feel like a cage when a heart grows lonely. I was born from light itself, woven, they say, from the breath of stars. My mother, the Queen Mother of Heaven, shaped me from threads of celestial silk, placed a loom in my hands, and told me my purpose was to weave the clouds, the rainbows, and the soft robes of dawn. I never questioned her then. The sky was vast, the halls of heaven endless, and I, Zhinü, the weaver girl, was proud to serve. But as the ages passed, I began to see how even beauty can become a chain when it leaves no room for choice. Each morning, I rise before the sun, though here there is no true dawn. Light seeps through the mist of heaven, soft and steady, never changing. I walk across jade floors that never echo, through corridors that smell faintly of dew. My loom stands waiting by the edge of the silver river. The shuttle hums when I touch it, threads gliding through my fingers like flowing water. With each pass, I paint the sky anew, pink for sunrise, pale gold for noon, lavender for the fading of day. I weave the garments of gods who will never thank me, the veils that hide the stars from mortal eyes. It is peaceful work, but the peace feels hollow. Perfection leaves no space for surprise. Every cloud I weave is flawless. Every dawn looks exactly as it should. Yet sometimes when I pause, my hand still resting on the silk, I wonder what it would be like to make a mistake, to let a thread slip, to see the sky ripple imperfectly. Would the world end? Or would it, perhaps, breathe differently, more alive? The immortals around me do not wonder such things. They move through their days like drifting mist, serene and certain. The musicians pluck harps strung with starlight. The courtiers whisper praise to my mother. They speak of balance, duty, order, but beneath their calm tones is a weight of expectation, as though all heaven might unravel if one of us stopped pretending to be divine. I watch them and feel the ache of something unnamed. When I close my eyes, I see not the perfection of heaven, but a faint image of earth below, a river, a field, a cluster of homes glowing with lamplight. I imagine the smell of smoke and soil, the sound of laughter, the pulse of hearts that know both sorrow and joy. Down there, people make and mend, gain and lose, live and die. Their hands are rough, their work imperfect. But how precious that imperfection must be. Sometimes I dream I am among them. In the dream, I am no goddess. I am simply a woman with callous fingers, weaving cloth for those she loves. My loom is made of wood, not pearl. My thread catches, tangles, and breaks, but I do not mind. I laugh at my own mistakes, and someone laughs with me, a voice deep and warm, like the earth after rain. I wake with the echo of that sound still in my ears, and it makes the stillness of heaven unbearable. I have never spoken of this to my mother. She is kind but distant, her heart bound to the laws that keep heaven turning. She believed that desire leads to chaos. Once, long ago, when I lingered too long at the river's edge, she said, "Zhinü, do not let curiosity lead you astray. The mortal world is full of hunger and loss. We are above that." I nodded, but I did not believe her. How could a world full of feeling be lesser than one without it? And so I keep weaving. My hands obey, but my thoughts wander. I imagine the lives beneath the clouds I spin. A farmer guiding his ox with mud, a mother humming to her child, a girl sitting by her window, threading a needle by lamplight. Do they ever look up and wonder who makes their skies? Do they know that I, too, am watching them? Once, when I leaned too far over the edge of the silver river, I thought I saw something moving below, a glimmer not of light, but of life. A man, perhaps, walking beside a red ox. The sight was fleeting, but it caught in me like a thread snagged on a nail. For nights after, I could not sleep. I found myself weaving slower, distracted by the thought of him, this mortal who seemed to carry peace within his steps. There was a warmth in the way he held the reins, a gentleness that no immortal song could match. I told myself it was foolish, that mortals live and fade too quickly to matter, yet their lives seem fuller for it. They cherish the days they have because they know there are not many. What would it feel like, I wonder, to love knowing you will one day lose? To hold someone and know time is counting each breath? That, I think, must be the greatest courage. In heaven, everything endures. No pain, no aging, no end. But without an end, how can anything truly begin? The silver river winds endlessly through the sky, dividing heaven from the world below. I have crossed it many times in my mind. I picture myself stepping onto its glowing surface, the water cool against my feet. I imagine following it down through clouds until I reach the land of men, where mornings smell of grass and nights hum with crickets, where people work not because they must uphold divine law, but because they love, they need, they hope. Sometimes, as I weave, I let small flaws slip into the fabric, tiny ripples of light that my mother will never notice. I like to think they fall through the sky and land among mortals as shooting stars. Perhaps someone makes a wish on them. Perhaps that wish reaches me. They say God should not feel longing, but I do. It grows inside me like an unspoken melody, gentle yet persistent. The threads on my loom tremble when I touch them, as if they, too, yearn for something more. The silver river glows brighter each night, as though reflecting my thoughts back at me. I do not yet know that longing can summon destiny. I do not yet know that far below, the cowherd who caught my gaze looks up every evening, wondering who I am. I only know that the wind feels different tonight, alive, carrying whispers from earth that sound almost like invitation. And so, when dawn comes again and I stand by my loom, the clouds I weave shimmer with a strange new warmth. My hands hesitate. My heart listens. Somewhere deep within the endless calm of heaven, a single thread begins to loosen. If you've ever loved someone who didn't know your name yet, You already know Niulang's story. Niulang was not a man of great words or wealth. The earth itself was a companion, and the rhythm of his days was written in furrows and footprints. When the morning mist still clung to the fields, he would rise, stretch his back, and greet the day with a silence that was neither empty nor sad. It was a kind of silence that listens. His oxen waited near the pen, their eyes calm, their breaths steaming in the cool dawn. They knew his steps, his voice, his gentle way of brushing their flanks before leading them to the fields. He had been alone for a long time, though he rarely thought of it that way. His parents had died when he was young, leaving him a small patch of land and 2 faithful oxen. He had married once, briefly, but sickness took her before the first harvest. The house they had built together, mud walls, a thatched roof, 1 window facing the river, still stood. Inside, her weaving frame remained where she left it, gathering dust like a memory no one dared disturb. Niulang's neighbors often said he was too quiet, too soft for the world's roughness. But those who watched him work could see a quiet strength in the way he endured the heat, the blisters, the long hours of solitude. He moved through hardship with the patience of the land itself. He plowed, sowed, and harvested with a rhythm that matched the seasons. When it rained, he mended tools beneath the awning. When the wind howled, he sat by the fire and carved wooden toys for the village children. He asked for little, gave easily, and slept soundly. Sometimes at dusk, he would sit by the riverbank, resting his hands on his knees, and watch the sunlight scatter across the water. The reflections shimmered like silk, and he wondered if someone above was weaving the sky. He didn't know her name, not yet, but there were moments when he felt seen, like the heavens bent a little closer just to watch him work. His oxen were his closest friends. One was old and scarred, with a patch of white on its forehead shaped almost like a cloud. The villagers called it the celestial ox, half in jest, half in awe. Niulang spoke to it, as if it could understand. He told about the seasons, the yield of the fields, and sometimes, on the loneliest nights, about the ache he carried without words. The ox would snort softly, flick its tail, and graze on, as if to say, "I'm listening." He lived simply, but not without beauty. His mornings smelled of wet earth and straw, his evenings of smoke and steamed rice. When he cooked, he hummed tunelessly. When he bathed in the river, he laughed at the cold water biting his skin. There was no audience, no need to perform. His life was a small, steady flame, unnoticed by the world, yet unflickering. Still, there were moments when the stillness pressed too tightly against his ribs. Nights when the moon rose bright and full, he would feel a longing he couldn't name. It wasn't just for company. It was for connection, a sense that something or someone was missing. He could feel it like a space beside him where another breath should be. He had seen love once, his parents, his wife, and he understood its quiet work. It was not the kind of love sung by poets, but the kind that fixed roofs, fetched water, shared silence, the kind that endured. Perhaps that was why he never remarried. He believed love should come naturally, like rain to a thirsty field, not forced by arrangement or need. Sometimes, while tending the oxen, he would gaze at the clouds and imagine stories. He thought of the gods and their heavenly courts, of weavers and warriors and dragons that ruled the winds. But more often, he thought of ordinary things: the tenderness of a bird feeding its young, the patience of a seed pushing through soil. These were miracles enough. One summer evening, as the sun sank behind the hills, he saw something strange in the sky, a streak of light, faint at first, then bright as fire, crossed from one end of heavens to the other. The ox raised its head and bellowed softly, as if recognizing something familiar. Niulang followed its gaze. The stars shimmered more brightly that night, and the Milky Way seemed almost alive, its glow rippling like silk caught in the wind. He felt something stir in him, a pulse of awe and anticipation, though he didn't know why. The next morning when he woke, the air felt different, warmer, sweeter, as if the world itself had drawn a deep, contented breath. The river shimmered more than usual, the sky bluer, the breeze gentler. He brushed the ox's mane and laughed. "What are you smiling at?" he asked the animal, though he couldn't help smiling too. The days passed in their quiet pattern, but something invisible had shifted. When Niulang walked through the fields, he felt the sun linger longer on his shoulders. The birds seemed to sing louder. And once, just once, he thought he saw a figure near the river, moving among the reeds, a girl in flowing robes, her hands trailing in the water. But when he blinked, she was gone. He told himself it must have been a trick of the light. Yet he found himself returning to that spot again and again without reason. Sometimes he brought his ox there and let it drink, pretending not to look for her. Other times, he sat quietly, listening to the rush of the river, half hoping to hear footsteps on the stones. He didn't know that far above, a goddess had been watching him too, that his gentleness, his devotion, had reached even the heart of heaven. For now, Niulang was simply himself, a man of earth and patience, unaware that his steady days were numbered, that love, bright and perilous, was already weaving its way toward him. If you ever loved someone who didn't know your name yet, you already know Niulang's story. You know the waiting, the faith that something unseen is listening, and the quiet courage it takes to keep your heart open in a world that rarely notices kindness. And that's where we'll leave him for now. Sitting by his river, gazing at a sky that's beginning to shimmer with destiny. Some loves don't need words. They bloom like silk on water, fragile yet unbreakable. That summer, the world felt softer. The days stretched long, drenched in the golden hush of ripened fields, and the river ran slow, carrying dragonflies on its glassy back. It was on such a day that Zhinü, hidden beneath mortal robes, walked down from the heavens. Her feet touched the earth lightly, as if the grass itself had been waiting for her. The scent of warm soil and wildflowers filled her breath. For the first time, she felt weight, gentle, grounding, real. She had left her loom behind in the sky. No one in heaven had noticed. Her threads still shimmered faintly, weaving on their own, obedient to her lingering will. But down here, the air was alive with things that could never exist above. Unevenness, texture, imperfection. The clouds no longer drifted by command. They followed their own quiet longing. And so, in this fragile freedom, she wandered toward the sound of water. Niulang was already there. He had brought his ox to drink, his sleeves rolled up, his face bronzed by the sun. His hands were rough from labor, his hair damp with sweat. He didn't see her at first. He was humming softly, the same tune he always sang when the fields were kind and the day had gone well. When he finally looked up, the sound stopped mid-note. For a moment, the world forgot to move. Zhinü stood across the river, her hair dark as twilight, her robe pale as dawn. She seemed made of air and light, yet her eyes held the warmth of someone utterly human. Niulang blinked, thinking she must be an illusion, a trick of the summer haze. But the ox beside him raised its head and bellowed softly, as if to say, "Look again." He did, and she was still there. She smiled first, not the smile of a goddess, polished and distant, but one that trembled slightly at the corners, as if she, too, couldn't believe this meeting was real. He lifted a hand in greeting, awkward, unsure what to say. The river between them shimmered, neither deep nor shallow, yet wide enough to remind them they came from different worlds. When she spoke, her voice was quiet, as though she feared to disturb the air. "Is this your river?" He shook his head. "No one owns a river," he said. "We just borrow its water for a while." Her eyes softened. "Then may I borrow it too?" He nodded, and with that, she stepped into the shallows. The water rippled around her ankles, catching sunlight in circles that danced toward him. When she reached the other side, she looked down at her feet, amazed. "So this is how it feels," she whispered. Niulang didn't understand, but he didn't need to. He offered her a seat on the grassy bank and handed her a gourd of cool water. She drank, then laughed softly, an unpracticed sound, like the first note of a song she had never sung before. "It tastes alive," she said. He smiled. "That's because it is." They sat together without speaking for a long time. The air was full of the hum of cicadas, the faint rustle of reeds, the ox swatting flies with its tail. She asked about his work, and he told her the fields, of planting and waiting, of the joy in watching things grow. She listened as though every word were a secret. In turn, she told him carefully about weaving, how each thread must find its place, how light itself could be folded into color. As she spoke, he noticed the way her fingers moved in the air, graceful and sure, tracing invisible patterns. He thought she must be a weaver unlike any other, though he did not yet know what kind of thread she once spun. Days passed like this, quietly without planning. She began to visit often, always near the river, always when the sky was clear. She helped him gather reeds, wash her hands in the same stream where his ox drank, and laughed when he showed her how to braid grass into ropes. Once, she tried to weave a small mat from the stalks. Her fingers fumbled, untrained for such coarse material, but when she finished, he said it was the finest mat he had ever seen. She blushed and looked away. Each day, their words grew fewer, yet their silences grew richer. They learned to understand without asking. When he offered her fruit, she knew it meant stay longer. When she smoothed the dust from his sleeve, he knew it meant I'm happy here. The river became their bridge, not their boundary. But love, even the gentlest kind, cannot hide forever. One evening, as dusk fell and fireflies began to glow, the ox looked toward the heavens and gave a low, uneasy sound. The Milky Way above shimmered faintly, as if someone far away had noticed a missing thread. Zhinü paused mid-laugh, her hand still on Niulang's arm. For a heartbeat, she felt the pull of her other world, the faint, silken tug of duty calling her name. Niulang saw the shadow pass across her face. "Are you cold?" he asked, worried. She shook her head. "No, only sometimes the wind reminds me of where I came from." He didn't press her. Instead, he took her hand, callous against smooth skin, earth against heaven. "Wherever that is," he said gently, "you don't have to be alone here." Her eyes filled with light, soft as tears but not sorrowful. "You speak as though you know my heart." "Maybe," he said, "maybe it speaks like mine." They stood by the river as night fell completely. The stars emerged, slow and deliberate. Above them, the silver river flowed across the sky, its reflection trembling in the water below. Two rivers, two worlds, mirroring each other. Zhinü leaned against him, and for the first time in her immortal life, she felt the beat of another heart against her own. It wasn't perfect, it wasn't eternal, but it was real. The ox snorted softly, as if blessing the union. The fireflies swirled around them, bright and fleeting. Somewhere high above, the Queen Mother of Heaven stirred in her palace, sensing a disruption in the harmony of the skies. But for now, the lovers were untouched by consequence. The night belonged to them. In the days that followed, Zhinü stayed. She wove garments for Niulang from silk she conjured from starlight, soft but strong. He taught her to milk cows, to laugh at the stubbornness of goats, to sing the songs of harvest. Their lives blended like two threads crossing at last, not fighting the weave but completing it. Some loves don't need words. They bloom like silk on water, fragile yet unbreakable. And for a little while, heaven and earth forgot their distance. Would you still choose love if it meant angering heaven itself? The days that followed were golden and fleeting. To Zhinü and Niulang, time felt suspended, as though the world had forgotten to turn. They lived quietly in their small cottage by the river, surrounded by the hum of life. Fields heavy with grain, smoke curling from cooking fires, the low murmur of the ox in the yard. At dawn, she would weave, her fingers graceful and sure. By noon, he would return from the fields, his face warm with sunlight. They ate together, laughed softly, and sometimes fell silent just to listen, to the water, to the wind, to each other's breathing. It was the kind of peace that makes a heart believe it will last forever. But nothing escapes the notice of heaven. Far above, in the golden courts of the sky, the Queen Mother of Heaven sat beside her loom of destiny. For days she felt an unease, a tiny tremor in the balance of the universe. Clouds drifted unevenly. The colors of dawn grew faint, as though someone had forgotten their place in the pattern. When she examined the heavens, she found something missing, the touch of her daughter's hand in the weaving of the clouds. At first, she told herself it was an illusion, but the silence of Zhinü's chambers told the truth. The loom stood still, its threads hanging loose like forgotten promises. The Queen Mother's heart, though regal and immortal, tightened with something painfully mortal, fear. For a goddess, fear was not of loss, but of imbalance. Every soul, divine or human, had a place in the fabric of existence. If one thread slipped free, the whole might unravel. So she sent her maidens to search. They flew down through layers of mist and starlight until they reached the mortal world. And there, they found her, Zhinü, the weaver girl, dressed as a human, her divine light softened but unmistakable. They saw her by the river, laughing with a man whose hands were rough with work, his gaze steady, his smile full of trust. When the maidens returned, the Queen Mother listened in silence. She did not rage. She did not curse. But her hands trembled slightly as she touched the empty loom. "Love," she whispered, "is the one thread that defies the pattern." Still, duty was duty. The balance had been broken. And heaven, even when it grieves, must restore what is lost. That night, the wind changed. Zhinü woke suddenly, her heart heavy, though no sound had stirred the house. The air felt different, cold, edged with sorrow. She turned to Niulang, sleeping beside her, his arm resting across her waist. For a moment, she watched him, memorizing the warmth of his skin, the peace of his face. Then the world outside filled with light. The roof trembled. The ox in the yard began to bellow, not in fear but warning. Zhinü's breath caught. She knew that light, knew it too well. The heavens had come for her. Niulang woke to her tears. "What is it?" he asked. "My mother," she whispered. "She knows." Before he could answer, the sky split open. Clouds rolled like waves, and from them descended celestial guards, robes flowing, eyes stern, wings shimmering with power. Behind them, the Queen Mother herself appeared, radiant and sorrowful. She did not touch the ground. She floated above it, her presence like the weight of fate itself. "Zhinü," she said softly, "you have broken the order of heaven." Zhinü fell to her knees. "Mother, please." But the Queen Mother shook her head. "You were made for the stars, not the soil. You have abandoned your post. The silver river dims without your weaving. The sky grows unsteady. Do you not see what your love has done?" Niulang stepped forward, trembling but unafraid. "If she has sinned, then let me share her sin. I am the one who—" The Queen Mother raised her hand, and the wind silenced him. "You are mortal," she said, her voice heavy with both anger and pity. "You cannot share a burden." "I can love her," he said quietly. "Isn't that burden enough?" The Queen Mother looked at him then, not as a goddess looks at a man, but as a mother looks at the child who has stolen her daughter's heart. For a moment, compassion flickered in her eyes, but duty drowned it. "Love is not enough to sustain the heavens," she said. "It never was." With a wave of her sleeve, the sky darkened. Lightning twisted through the clouds, not in violence, but in sorrow. The celestial guards reached for Zhinü. She struggled, calling Niulang's name, her fingers grasping at air. The Queen Mother's tears fell like rain, but her resolve did not falter. The laws of heaven could not bend for one heart, no matter how pure. Niulang ran after them, shouting, but the distance between them widened with every step. The ox bellowed again, its voice echoing with something unearthly. "Master," it cried, yes, in words, for it was no ordinary beast. "Take my hide when I am gone, and it will carry you to her." Before Niulang could reply, the ox collapsed, bowing once as if in farewell. Its body glowed, then faded into golden dust. Heartbroken, Niulang did as he was told. He draped the ox's hide over his shoulders, and in an instant, the wind lifted him into the sky. He flew higher and higher, through clouds that wept and thundered, chasing the shimmering trail where the Queen Mother had taken his beloved. He could see her ahead, reaching back toward him, her tears scattering like falling stars. For one brief, impossible moment, their fingers touched. The Queen Mother saw and wept anew. But this time, her grief turned into power. With one final sweep of her hand, she drew a silver hairpin from her crown and struck it across the sky. The heavens shuddered. Light burst forth. A vast river of stars poured between them, glittering, endless, impassable. It flowed with her sorrow, with Zhinü's cries, with Niulang's desperate pleas. Thus, the silver river, the Milky Way, was born. Zhinü fell upon its far bank, trembling, calling his name. Niulang hovered on the other side, unable to cross. Their voices carried over the distance, thin and broken. "Wait for me," he shouted. "I will," she cried back, her words nearly swallowed by the roar of the cosmic river. And so they were divided, heaven on one side, earth on the other, forever reaching, forever yearning. The Queen Mother turned away, her tears still shining among the stars. Back in the mortal world, the wind grew still. The river by Niulang's home no longer sang. Yet above, the sky burned with a trace of their love, a bridge of light that neither time nor distance could erase. Even the gods, it seemed, could not look at it without remembering. Would you still choose love if it meant angering heaven itself? Perhaps that is a question every heart must answer in its own quiet hour, when duty and desire stand side by side, and the stars wait to see which one you'll follow. Once a year, the stars hush. Even the gods step back to let love cross the sky. In the endless turning of the heavens, where eons pass like breaths, there remains one night that does not fade into routine. On that night, the silver river stills, and all creation seems to lean closer. Even the winds soften, as if unwilling to disturb what unfolds between two hearts long kept apart. The Queen Mother of Heaven, though firm in her decree, could not escape the ache that followed. She had restored balance to the cosmos, yes, but she had also silenced the laughter of her daughter and dimmed the light in her own halls. Each time she passed the weaver girl's empty loom, the threads hung motionless, dull without her touch. Heaven had regained order, but lost its melody. Zhinü, meanwhile, sat on her side of the silver river, her loom forgotten beside her. The star she once wove now shimmered without purpose. Every night, she would rise and walk to the edge, where the glowing water flowed like molten glass beneath her feet. On the far bank, she could see Niulang's faint silhouette, his eyes lifted, searching for her. They could not speak across that distance, but love does not need sound to endure. Niulang, on the other side, kept to his small hut beneath the celestial sky. The ox's spirit, now his guardian, stayed by him in silence. His mortal life had long ended. Heaven had taken him too, so that he might not wander forever lost between worlds. Yet even immortality could not ease the weight of longing. Each dawn he rose and tended the heavens as he once tended his fields, diligently, faithfully, his thoughts never straying far from her name. The gods, in their courts of jade and starlight, watched them from afar. Some whispered that their love was foolish, a remnant of mortal weakness. Others, softer heart, turned away when they saw Zhinü's tears fall into the silver river and glow as they sank, becoming tiny stars that drifted downstream. It was the magpies who could bear it no longer. They had seen everything from their place in the skies. How Zhinü's songs had faded into silence, how Niulang waited without complaint, how the river flowed ceaselessly between them. And so, when the 7th day of the 7th lunar month arrived, the magpies gathered. From every corner of heaven and earth, they came, a storm of black and silver wings, hundreds, then thousands, then millions. The Queen Mother saw the dark cloud rising to the light and paused in wonder. The magpies did not speak. They simply flew, forming an arch across the silver river. Their wings brushed the starlit current, their feathers glowing faintly where they touched the light. Slowly, carefully, they wove themselves into a living bridge, a bridge made not of stone or silk, but devotion. And for the first time since the river had divided them, Zhinü stepped forward. The air trembled as her foot touched the nearest wing. The magpies steadied themselves beneath her weight, their songs blending into a single harmonious hum. Across the river, Niulang began to walk too, his steps measured, his gaze fixed on her. The distance between them, once immeasurable, shrunk with every heartbeat. When they met in the center of the bridge, the heavens shone brighter than ever before. The silver river stilled, reflecting their faces as if in approval. They reached for each other's hands, and this time, the touch did not fade. For a while, time itself forgot to move. No words passed between them. None were needed. Their reunion was beyond language, a meeting of souls long separated, now whole again, if only for a night. Zhinü rested her head against Niulang's shoulder. He brushed away a tear from her cheek, though more followed, falling gently into the glowing river below. Each one became a new star, a mark of their love written into the sky. Even the Queen Mother wept. From her throne, she watched the bridge and the lovers upon it. Perhaps she remembered what it felt like to be young, to love before knowing consequence. Perhaps she simply realized that order, without mercy, leaves the heavens hollow. Whatever stirred in her heart that night, she did not stop them. When dawn approached, the magpies shifted their wings. The bridge began to tremble. The lovers clung to each other, knowing the moment was slipping away. "I will wait," Niulang whispered. "I will return," Zhinü replied. And as the first light of morning touched the horizon, they let go. The magpies scattered, their song echoing through the emptying sky. The silver river flowed once more, dividing heaven and earth. Yet now it no longer felt like a wound. It was a promise. Each year after that, on the seventh night of the seventh moon, the magpies gathered again. No decree from heaven could stop them. The Queen Mother, resigned and wiser, allowed it. She even commanded the winds to calm and the stars to shine gently on that night, so that the bridge could form undisturbed. From the mortal world, people began to notice. Farmers would pause in their work when they saw the stars glittering more brightly than usual. Young women, weaving by lamplight, would whisper wishes to the weaver girl, asking for love that endured. Men returning from the fields would glance up at the Milky Way and feel a sudden warmth in their chests, as if the heavens themselves remembered someone they once loved. And so, the night became sacred. Lamps were lit by riversides, ribbons tied to trees, and offerings placed beneath the open sky. Lovers prayed to meet, to hold hands across distance, to be granted even one night of understanding. The magpies answered with their wings. It is said that if the seventh night is clear, the lovers meet without tears. If it rains, their weeping fills the clouds. Either way, the world feels changed the next morning, softer, as though love itself has passed overhead and brushed its hand across the earth. Even now, when you look up on that summer night, you can see the faint shimmer of the bridge. The silver river glows brighter. And if you listen closely, you might hear the rustle of wings above the wind. Some say the stars flicker because they are watching, holding their breath for the moment when two figures meet in the center of the light. And if you stay long enough, you might catch a glimpse, the weaver girl and the cowherd, standing hand in hand, the river below them silent, the sky around them trembling with joy. Once a year, the stars hush. Even the gods step back to let love cross the sky. When you hold fabric to the light, do you see the stars in its threads? Centuries have passed since the night the magpies first bridged the heavens, yet their wings still seem to flutter in the stories people tell. The weaver girl and the cowherd became more than a tale of longing. They became part of the rhythm of life itself, stitched quietly into the patterns of human hands and hearts. Every year, on the seventh day of the seventh lunar month, the story breathes again. The Chinese call it Qixi, the Night of Sevens. Long before it was ever called Chinese Valentine's Day, it was a night when women would bring their looms outside under the open sky. To honor Zhinü, they believed that if they worked by starlight, their stitches would become more skillful, their hands more graceful, their hearts more understanding. Imagine them, young girls and old mothers, weaving side by side in courtyards perfumed with summer air. The looms creaked softly like crickets, their rhythm blending with laughter and murmured songs. Some threads glimmer faintly with silver, a tribute to the Milky Way itself. Between the steady movements of their hands, stories flow, tales of love that endured, of patience rewarded, of hope that never faded no matter how wide the river grew. The women whisper prayers as they weave. Not loud, not formal, just small wishes folded into the silk. One wishes for a kind husband, another for a reunion with someone far away, a widow for peace in the memory of what once was. Each thread carries its own secret, and when the fabric is complete, it hums softly with a kind of living warmth. To the women of ancient China, weaving was never only labor. It was language, emotion, and memory. The loom was a mirror of life, threads crossing, breaking, joining again. A weaver learned that tension must be balanced. Too loose and the pattern fades. Too tight and it tears. Love, they understood, was much the same. The legend gave meaning to their work. In every finished cloth, there was a reflection of Zhinü's devotion, the belief that something fragile could still last forever. Each bolt of silk, each embroidered sleeve, was a quiet act of remembrance. It said, I am weaving what she once wove. I am keeping her promise alive. Men, too, found their way into the story. Farmers like Niulang looked up the sky on Qixi night, their faces illuminated by the glow of the silver river. They placed bowls of fruit and grains outside their doors, gifts of magpies who carried love across the heavens. Children stayed awake longer than usual, pointing at the Milky Way and asking which star was the Cowherd, which one the weaver girl. Their parents would answer softly, they're both there, waiting to meet. Over time, songs were written, their melodies light and sorrowful. One old folk song begins, the weaver girl threads her longing through the night. The Cowherd counts his tears by starlight. Another ends, even if the sky divides us, love will find its bridge. The people sang these songs not just to remember, but to feel part of something greater, a story that belonged to everyone who had ever waited, hoped, or wept beneath the same stars. The Qixi festival became a celebration of craft as much as affection. Women would offer their finest handiwork to heavens, embroidered purses, silk ribbons, small stitched animals, and pray for dexterity and love. It wasn't vanity. It was faith in creation itself, a belief that beauty born from the hands could speak to the heart. Even today, the tradition lingers, transformed but not lost. Lovers exchange gifts, write letters, and look up together at the summer sky, searching for the faint trail of the silver river. In some villages, elderly women still hang their weavings near the window on that night, letting the moonlight pass through the threads. They say the light completes the pattern, and beyond China, the story has traveled far. It appears in paintings, in poetry, in the way silk seems to shimmer when moved beneath a lamp. Artists from every generation return to it because it reminds them of something eternal. That love, like art, asks for patience. That distance does not destroy beauty. It deepens it. Zhinü and Niulang's story endures because it belongs to the hands as much as the heart. It reminds us that love is not always grand gestures or perfect endings. Sometimes it is a quiet labor creation, mending, tending, weaving meaning into ordinary days. Perhaps that is why fabric has always been sacred to humanity. It holds touch, warmth, and time. A mother's woven blanket, a lover's embroidered sleeve. Each thread tells a story of care. Somewhere in that lineage, the weaver girl's gift still breathes. Her presence lives in every act of making, in every attempt to bind what the world tries to keep apart. So when you hold a piece of fabric to the light, look closely. You might see more than texture and color. You might see the faint shimmer of starlight, the memory of hands that reached across the ages to remind us that even loss can be beautiful, because the sky is still weaving. Each night, the silver river glows, endless and forgiving, its light falling softly upon looms and lovers alike. And though the magpies return only once a year, their promise is eternal. Love, like thread, may stretch thin, but it never truly breaks. When you hold fabric to the light, do you see the stars in its threads? Maybe love isn't about having, but remembering even when apart. As I think of Zhinü and Niulang, I realize their story is not only about gods and stars. It is about us, about the quiet, patient work of being human. It asks questions we still whisper to ourselves in the dark. How much of love can survive distance? Can devotion exist without possession? Is separation always a punishment? Or can it somehow become a gift? The weaver girl and the cowherd lived out what every heart eventually learns. That love is both the gentlest teacher and the hardest test. Heaven demanded balance, and in doing so, forced them apart. Yet their story endures not because they defied the Queen Mother, but because they continued to love even when the universe told them they could not. They didn't conquer the stars. They learned to live beneath them, letting longing become its own kind of faith. Perhaps that is what love really asks of us. Not to hold, but to witness. To remember someone so deeply that their absence still shapes your days. To wait without resentment. To hope without demand. We think of distance as emptiness, but in the space between two souls, there is room for growth, reflection, grace. The heavens, after all, mirror our own hearts. There are rivers that divide us, of time, of duty, of difference. But there are also bridges, invisible yet enduring, built from kindness, patience, and memory. The magpies gather for the lovers, yes, but don't we, too, build such bridges in small ways? A letter sent across years, a song that recalls a voice, a story retold so that love does not fade into silence. When I picture Zhinü by her loom, I no longer see sorrow alone. I see understanding. She weaves not only for the heavens, but for the world below, for every person who has ever waited, lost, or loved from afar. Her hands no longer tremble. They move with purpose. She knows now that threads must sometimes part to form a pattern worth keeping. And Niulang, quiet, steady Niulang, teaches us another truth, that strength need not be loud to endure. His love was not marked by grand gestures or rebellion. It was expressed in patience, in tending his ox, in trusting the unseen, in believing that every sunset brought him one day closer to her return. His is a love that endures when the world goes silent, the love that trusts even when unseen. If heaven stands for duty and earth stands for desire, then perhaps the Milky Way itself is the space where we must learn to balance both. It gleams with tension, the pull between what must be and what the heart wants. Every choice we make, every sacrifice we bear, adds a star to that river. That is why it shines so brightly. It is filled with the memory of every love that ever had to wait. There is beauty in limits. We live in a world that ends each day with night, that measures life in seasons, that asks us to let go again and again. Yet within those boundaries, meaning takes shape. Without endings, there would be no yearning. Without distance, no reunion. Without time, no tenderness. Even the gods, with all their immortality, learned this truth through their daughters' tears. Maybe that is why this story survived for centuries, not to remind us of punishment, but of perspective, to show us that even loss can become light, that sometimes the greatest love story is not the one where two people stay together, but the one where they find peace in being apart, and still send warmth across the space between. Look up at the night sky. Every glimmer is a heartbeat that refused to vanish. Each star, a memory someone refused to forget. When you gaze at the Milky Way, you are seeing a map of patience, of moments when love met restraint and became something stronger. In the stillness of night, the heavens remind us that love and duty are not enemies. They are threads in the same cloth. One holds the pattern, the other gives it color. Without duty, love would dissolve into chaos. Without love, duty would harden into emptiness. Between them lies harmony, the rhythm that keeps both heaven and earth turning. Zhinü and Niulang's story, then, is not tragedy but balance. It tells us that love, when true, does not fade with separation. It transforms. It becomes song, memory, sky. It teaches us that to love deeply is to accept impermanence, to understand that even fleeting moments can last forever when carried in the heart. So, perhaps the next time you part from someone, remember this tale. Remember that distance does not end connection. The heart, like the magpies, knows how to find its way across impossible spans. Maybe love isn't about having, but remembering even when apart. If you ever stood under a night sky and felt something stir inside you, something you couldn't name, perhaps it was this story remembering itself through you. Perhaps a thread of light brushed your soul, reminding you that you, too, are part of a pattern older than time. The silver river flows still. The magpies will gather again, and in their wings the lesson endures. Love is not weakened by the heaven's decree. It is sanctified by it. The river still flows. Always has, always will. Now the night has deepened, and the world outside is quiet again. The lamps burn low. The air cools against the windows, and the sky, our endless witness, spreads its silvery calm above. You can almost hear the hum of it, the slow turning of stars across black velvet, steady and eternal. The Milky Way glows faintly, a path of light you've come to know not as distance, but as connection, a river that keeps weaving heaven and earth together, thread by patient thread. If you close your eyes, you might see it more clearly. The same river that carried Zhinü's tears and Niulang's longing now flows through every quiet night. It ripples behind your eyelids like memory itself, soft, shimmering, endless. Above us, the lovers still wait for the seventh night of the seventh moon. Yet even in their waiting, there is peace. They have learned what we all must, that love does not vanish in absence. It deepens, becoming light. The sky, if you listen, speaks in a language older than words. It tells us that all things return in their own time. Rain to river, dusk to dawn, soul to soul. Every cycle is a promise kept. Every heartbeat, every sigh, every dream, woven back in a great fabric that holds everything together. Perhaps that's why the stars feel so gentle tonight. They are not cold jewels scattered in darkness. They are reminders. Every one of them holds a story, a moment of connection. Some are old as myth, others born from the quiet love of people who once stood exactly where you are now, looking up, wondering if the sky was listening. Maybe it is. The Milky Way, our silver river, has never stopped flowing. Its current is made of memory. The songs of the magpies, the whispers of lovers, the prayers of those who wait. When you look at it, you see not just light, but the rhythm of everything that has ever mattered. Birth, loss, reunion, forgiveness, woven and unbroken. And you, here in this moment of stillness, are part of that same weaving. Your life, your longing, your quiet act of care, they're the threads that bind heaven to earth. You don't need to see the pattern to trust that it's there. It grows beneath your days, hidden behold, connecting you to every soul that ever reached for something just beyond their grasp. So let the story settle now. Let it sink softly into the hush of your mind, where dreams begin. Zhinü's loom is still spinning somewhere, faintly humming through the night. Niulang's steady hands still hold the memory of her touch. And above them, the river gleams, a path not of sorrow, but of endurance. If you listen closely, you can hear it, the river's quiet song. It does not rush or roar. It simply moves, as love does, patient and sure. It carries no judgment, no urgency, only a reminder. Everything we love is part of a greater whole, and nothing truly leaves us. Perhaps that is the real gift of their story. Not the miracle reunion, but the serenity of acceptance. The understanding that to love deeply is to trust the spaces between. To rest in the knowledge that even when unseen, love continues its work, like a river beneath ice, flowing quietly toward spring. The sky above you knows this truth well. Every night, it begins again, darkness unfolding into light, silence deepening into song. It asks nothing of us but to look, to breathe, to remember. And as your breathing slows, you may feel a calm settling over you, the same calm that fills the heavens after the lovers part. It is not sorrow, it is stillness, a kind of peace born from endurance. The stars shimmer gently, their glow steady and kind. Each one seems to whisper, "You are part of this too. You are seen. You are remembered." So rest now. Let the river flow where it must. Let the threads of the story drift through your thoughts like silver strands through water. The night will keep them safe. The stars will hold them until morning. And when you wake, you'll carry something of it with you, a softness in your chest, a quiet certainty that even across impossible distances, love endures. If this story has soothed your heart tonight, let the stars carry your dreams, and meet me again under their quiet light.